welcome all of you to the Tzaddi Spirit Gathering teleconference. Today is May the 18th of 2021. My name is Reverend Lorane Weber. I have been a Tzaddi minister for now, I think, nearly 25 years. I can't believe I'm old enough to say that. And our topic today is called Listening to Place, Creating a Habitat of Hope. And I'm really very excited to be here. This is the first time I've done a spirit gathering. I thank Diane for inviting me, and also to be able to join with all of you around the country for this topic. So bear with me. I'm a newbie to all of this, and I hope I don't do anything that's too off the mark. But as you know, we are recording this call so that others who could not be with us tonight can listen into it. And if you would be so good as to press your phone's mute button or 6 to mute your line, that'll help keep the line quiet for the conversation. My plan for tonight is to offer you a little bit of a reflection on our topic, and with some, hopefully, thoughts to stir some interest, and then to offer a guided meditation on the topic, and then to open it up for us to talk a little bit about it. So I'm going to ask Diane to keep track of and to remind me certainly before the ending at the half hour, so that we know we need to wrap things up, and then I'll make sure I'm paying attention to what's going on. And as always in these gatherings, because they are spirit gatherings, we want to set the space for our work together. And I traditionally, in our work in our community, which is the Earthwalk Spiritual Center, which is a part of Tzaddi, we like to set the circle by calling in the 4 directions and the as above and the so below. So here I want us just to take a moment to get ourselves centered, to feel ourselves really present to this moment, to let go of all of the things that we carry around in our day-to-day lives. It's very simple to feel our to-do list, right there at the top of our attention, and to just give yourselves the gift of this moment that we have right now to connect with each other, to connect with spirit, and to connect with the energy of the topic that we're going to explore. Give ourselves a little bit of a break from the world as we know it, and to believe firmly that we can gather at the energetic level no matter where we are geographically. That the fact that we're doing so from different places in the country and on the planet is not an impediment to us feeling ourselves circling together. And so let's now really imagine that we are joining together at that energetic level through the sacredness of our hearts, each to each other. The beautiful gift of the human world is heart-to-heart communication, and we in this moment trust that every other person on this call will be connecting to us and be joining with us and partnering with us to create a sacred space for the work that we do here. And imagine that as we are joining in that circle, that there is a beautiful light, a beautiful flame, a beautiful fire that sits in the center of the wheel that we are creating here together. And that light is connecting from the center of that circle to the heart of each person here. This is the sacred web of life. This is the way we are connected always. And for every person who's on this call, for every person who listens into this call, know now that they are a part of that sacred mandala, that web that we are creating here together. And in this place now feel the power of the container for the work that we are going to do, for the exploration that we're going to undertake, that this sacred space has been created. Take a moment now to feel into that. Let us set now our intention for our gathering. First of all, that we are receptive and open to listen to one another with compassion and curiosity. That we feel free to ask for what we need, to speak what's in our heart, and to offer what we can, where we can. That we utilize this moment as a unique opportunity to deepen our connection with each other and with the divine and with the church that brings us together here, the community of spirit that is held by our organization and our own intention. I ask that this sharing that we're having here today serve us, serve our communities, and serve the planet. And I set the condition that everything that we do here will be done in alignment with sacred law, in accordance with divine will, for the highest and the greatest good. And so it is. All right. Everybody take a big breath and be here. I want to start my speaking with a poem. And this is a poem that was created by Elder Miriam Rose of the Aboriginal people of the Northern Territories of Australia. And the title of the poem is called Dadiri. Waking today with sadness, I sat on the end of the bed, so heavy, and listened to the sadness, like a sack of stones around my heart, so heavy. Dadiri, they said, Dadiri, deep listening. So I listened deeply. I listened, really listened, a patient taking in the gentle knowing and unspoken understanding of unhurried ears. No need to fix or change, just Dadiri, listening. Sadness, mostly silent, I felt to gently ask, sadness, dear, what do you want? And to be felt, said sadness. So this listener held the space, smiling kindly, while the body felt sad, so heavy in Dadiri, in listening and in letting be. Two things emerged. The feeling of sadness, so heavy, and around it, listening space, clear and kind and free, not so heavy. Dadiri, they said, Dadiri, deep listening. And so I felt called to listen to the listener, patiently, quietly, listening to the listener. And there my mind grew still and my heart grew soft, listening to the listening space, Dadiri. when Diane asked me to undertake this reflection, I did not know what I was going to talk about. I have the great opportunity every Sunday of offering online reflection to our community, and so I have a lot of different things that I've worked on, but particularly now in this spring moment and in so many of the things that I think are happening in our world, I felt that this was a wonderful maybe offering to give to those of you that have taken the time to come here and to deeply listen. Recently, our community has instituted a practice of land acknowledgement in setting our circles, and I don't know if you're familiar, but land acknowledgement is a means of acknowledging and understanding the unfolding history that has brought us to the land that we occupy, and to seek to understand our place within that history. And I've been very blessed, as I said, to live in northern Michigan and co-own a tract of 127 acres of predominantly undeveloped land. 100 acres is in the Conservancy, and I am looking out my window at beautiful pine trees, and this is the historical land of the Odawa people, the Ottawa people. And so when we first became stewards of this land, it was really important to us as vision keepers to listen carefully to what it wanted and how it would be used. And I'm really proud to say that this stewardship has been an evolving journey for us, and hopefully will continue to evolve as the land itself evolves. And I certainly have been deeply gifted by the teachings and the ceremonies of many indigenous teachers. I have a very deep practice of shamanism and nature-based works that I have built over the 25 years of my work in this area, and I know the feeling of the deep foundation that the land and the spirit of the land can give to us, and I'm aware of this as part of my giveaway to the world. And so when I say listening to place, creating a habitat of hope, I built that on a article that was written by Mary DeJong discussing a workshop that she did with the poet David White about listening in place as practice and poetry. And I want to quote from her article to kind of start us off there. When we listen deeply to the places that create our homescapes, our bioregions, we learn the stories of the land and create an imagination for how to mutually belong within these places. This practice of listening becomes a ritual in that it connects us to the great belonging within the community of creation, and it also invites spirit to break in afresh, posturing us forward toward possibilities of a flourishing future. These are acts of remembrance and remembering, practices that remind us of our interrelationship with the more-than-human world and bring us back into membership within this assembly. This quote invites us into the deeper listening that the poem Didari talks about. It's a listening that's not limited to just those places that we think of as wild and natural, although I suspect it is most easily done there. It is a practice that can occur in any location, and it will draw us into relationship to the land no matter what or how the land has been impacted by our presence. And I think this is really important. I don't know if any of you are familiar with James Twyman, the Peace Troubadour. He's really, I think, one of the most powerful kind of spiritual saints we have walking on our planet at this moment. But he wrote a book at one point that he decided to do a vision quest, which is something that I offer to our community, and he thought about the place that would be the most challenging him to do the vision quest, which was not on the top of a mountain or in the middle of a woods. It was in a shopping mall. And he spent 3 days from opening to closing in the shopping mall on a spiritual quest. And I so loved that idea, and what he found, of course, were incredibly powerful lessons. So I think it's important for us to not say, well, the only place I can listen to nature is if I'm in nature. I think nature is all around us, and I spoke to my community about the old book A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, where we can find the energy of place to listen to, no matter where we are. It's just a matter of us being willing to assume that it is trying to speak to us. The eco-theologian and ethicist Larry Rasmussen says it this way. He says, we are not so much at home on Earth as we are home as Earth. And it's this place that we get to where we connect in with what place is asking us for that can bring a kind of dynamic of feeling as if we are suddenly having to struggle to figure out how do we respond to a natural world that no longer functions with resilience, no longer seems as if it is being cherished, is difficult to find when we are in the midst of despairing about ice melting and seas rising and toxic air and forests and wild places disappearing and species going to extinct. It's very hard for us to want to listen because there seems to be so much sadness that is attached to that. But it is exactly at this moment of deepest sorrow and connectedness to that loss that we have to reach for and vision for ourselves and for our communities and for our world what we're calling a habitat of hope. And we find that hope in the silence, in the still small voice from within the land itself calling to us to lean deeper into it, to lean deeper into what it is trying to speak to us and find our true belonging to it. That we're not separate from it, but we are intrinsically a part of it. And it is the voice of soul that is found in the place we are, not just found in the place within. And I want to repeat that our soul speaks to us not just from our place within, but from the place we are. And I think that there is a natural and profound dialogue between our soul and the soul of the place that we find ourselves in, and that dialogue is necessary to our well-being and our evolution. David White's poetry guides us into an imagination for this relationship, this dialogue with the natural world, and the particularity of place that transforms one's soul. He speaks of the growing sense of interrelation as a journey, a pilgrimage that would ultimately lead one to and through the most fundamental question of life. He calls this the conversational nature of reality. And he defines that as a kind of deep form of intimacy that essentially requires a kind of inside-outness of reality, the way in deep listening a bird song is heard not only outside the body but also inside of us, or the way our vulnerabilities are suddenly worn on our sleeves within the intimacy of a relationship for love, or how we contemplate the experience of a setting sun or a twinkling star, and we are transported outside of our own small human limitation into a larger experience of something that can only be felt and not described. So this intimate exchange brings us to a kind of boundary between what we are, what we seem to be, and that which is other than who we are. That boundary becomes very very porous and no longer seems like a strict division, but we are a part of that which we are experiencing. And so it's that place, that moment of knowing that we are both uniquely individual and also collectively connected, that I think is that habitat of hope, living in that place. And that is where we acknowledge the kind of inherent sorrow and loss and feeling of grief that we may have in relationship to the world that we occupy, but also is this incredible invitation into a new way of being in solidarity with that natural world. So the paradox that we hold there is to not be defeated by what we see, but actually moved into a kind of larger awareness of and embracing of that place that we are. It's Aldo Leopold's very succinct statement to think like a mountain. It's looking at the landscape through the lenses of our own stewardship, through the kind of intersectional relationship between land and human being, and how we are not intrinsically separated from it, but intrinsically contained within it. And it's also a place of real revelation that reminds us that this is home, and we belong to it, that we are part of this earth. It's very simple for those of us who are spiritual beings to become I sometimes think enamored of the etheric, enamored of all of the things that are at those high vibrational levels, and it's no accident that I founded a community called Earth Walk, because this challenge that we have, which I think is the bigger challenge, to actually walk on the earth in this way, is really the test of spirit that anyone who chooses a human incarnation, I think, is called into. So the integrity of the natural world renders our most basic fundamental task to live in such a way that assures a flourishing and regenerative life for all of the created world and for all of the generations who come past us. So how we live in the particular place we are, no matter where that is, truly is important, and that we are meant to be in deep relationship with it. We are meant to have this conversation that is part of that relationship. So ultimately, the practice of listening to place brings us to and through a question of acknowledging what our relationship to the land is and how we understand our stewardship of it, understand our responsibility to it. And I would like to take a moment now to just invite you to close your eyes and to take a breath, an inhalation and an exhalation. And with each inhalation, bring yourself more present to the place that you occupy right now. Stay in your body. Stay in the moment of this conversational reality, this dialogue that you are having with the place that you are, whether it's in the middle of a big city or in the middle of the woods. Imagine that you can have a conversation with this land that you are a part of. And open yourself to the spaces of that conversation that may be challenging and difficult, might be heartbreaking. But also open yourself to the place where the conversation can become expanded into a much larger understanding of who you are and where you are located and how you can be in relationship to it. I'm going to ask you now to take a moment to just connect with the spirit of the place that you are occupying. To realize that you are a part of that landscape. And let yourself feel into the spirit of that place. Lean into the wisdom and the teaching that is inherent in it. Listen to it. Allow yourself to receive a perception, a piece of information, to feel your participation in this place. Let yourself understand the sacredness of this place in a way you might not have believed possible. And through that understanding, move toward a kind of solidarity with it, a deep sense of belonging right where you are in this moment. Feel yourself committing to opening up to information and experience about this place that you occupy, that you can access it in an impeccable and ethical way by learning about it, exploring, experiencing it through the lens of listening to it, not just taking it for granted, not moving through it as if it were just this appendage, but to actually walk with intention and attention on the land that you occupy, and see yourself embracing a kind of evolving education about this land. Open yourself to the lineage of the place that you are living in right in this moment, to the history, to the memory, and to the inherited wounding that may exist. You can learn about it through the lens of sacred and storied ecology. You can learn about it from the teachings of those that have owned and stewarded the land throughout time, how this land has transformed throughout history. And gather up that sense of your place in that lineage and what responsibility you have to heal the woundedness that may have occurred, and to acknowledge deeply the history of the land that we live on. Feel yourself committing to finding out what is needed to ensure growth and evolution and integrity in the health of the world around you, of the land that you occupy, and see how it is a part of the ecology of the larger community, how it is in relationship to many other places and parts with a kind of synergy and interdependence. That it is a holographic part of the whole. This ecological perception of place is a practice to get to know the land by becoming deeply and intimately in dialogue with it. And take a moment now to just receive whatever else you are open to getting from the place that you are listening to. Bring yourself back into your room. Take a breath. And we have a few moments now for anyone who'd like to share what you received from this little journey and how it may be that you wish to move forward from it.
Catherine, picking up the stick. During the meditation, I remembered many trips to my park that is near where I live, where we're lucky enough to have the oldest trees in Manhattan. And on some excursions to that area, I have actually heard singing, the sounds of singing from the trees themselves, and it's a powerful memory to relive that experience. Putting down the stick.
Thank you, Catherine. That's a beautiful sharing.
Hi, Lorane. This is Sue. I got here late, but was able to participate or be with you guys for most of it. It was a very pleasant journey, many memories, places I've lived, talking to the grandfather trees on the Olympus, connecting with the crows in Alaska, talking with them. They would get your attention, and I would say, "I'm here, grandfather. What do you want? What do you have to say to me?" And every day I come to our dog park and sit here and commune with nature, the lake, the beasts that land, and all the dogs, of course. So many journeys, many places, connecting and listening. So this was a really nice journey. I smile as I remember these places. Thank you. Down the stick.
Thank you. Sounds wonderful.
Thank you, Rain. This is Diane. That was really beautiful. And I'm in Northern Virginia and am very near a home that still stands from the 1700s. It was thousands of acres of land owned by a wealthy somebody, and where I live would have been part of that. It was part of the route that Thomas Jefferson would go from Monticello to Washington, and this was a place that he would sometimes stop and stay on his way. So I just was feeling more rooted in the specific spot where I live, and imagining and feeling the vastness of this property from a couple centuries ago. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, this is Sally, and I'm in Western North Carolina, and I was just feeling into my property here that I own and the neighboring properties, and also today I was in the nature park at Weaverville because I'm president of the garden club and we kind of caretake that. So just communing with that land, and there is a spirit force that one taps into, or at least I do when I go out and I garden and kind of just meditate as I work and allow myself to be directed. So thank you. It was a lovely meditation.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Is there any other sharings, things that need to be said?
This is Veronica. I pick up the stick. I went to Central Park yesterday and today to sit with one of my cats. There's a wonderful tree there, and I always go to the tree and when I need to get strength. And I watch who comes near that tree, who literally comes near the tree. And it's very special. Only certain people approach that tree. He is such a healing tree. While listening to a young man who sounds like Richie Havens singing Beatles songs, and people walking by with their dogs, and two children that come and literally do little warlike dances in that area. And it's watching my cat respond to the energy of the ground of this tree. And I always smile and say, that moment from the Wizard of Oz, give me back my apples. Did you say something? And it's the power of these trees. And I always know which tree to go to. They're very, very, very unique and have something different to say. I used to take an ailing cat of mine to a different part of that area. It was a tree along the western southern walk of the strawberry field. That was where she gravitated to go and would sit there, and she would take that half an hour to go from being incredibly ill to so strong within a half an hour of being able to make sound as she'd walk, and the healing power of the earth and the tree's roots coming up to just give the strength and the patience and the understanding and the telling when it's time, they've given enough and you've had enough and time to go. I put down the stick.
Oh, thank you. Is there any other sharing out there? Anyone else have anything they want to add to or speak into the circle about this? All right. Well, one of the things that I wanted to kind of complete with is this idea of a land acknowledgement. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's come into kind of the popular lexicon of when groups gather to introduce a kind of connectedness and acknowledgement of the land that seeks to understand the history and the spirit of the place, but also the kind of assumption that we who currently occupy the land are the rightful owners of it. You know, it's so timely for us to be thinking right now in the horrible things that are happening in the Mideast around Israel and Gaza, and the conversation about who owns the land and who gets to use the land. And I encourage, if you have an interest in the idea of land acknowledgement, there's some wonderful Native American sites that give good information about how to create a land acknowledgement. And if you're creating a spiritual circle or a space and you want to integrate that in, our community has been doing that in many of the workshops we do, and it's been very powerful for people to talk about the land within the context of the place we're creating. And I wanted to share with you my own personal statement of acknowledgement, of land acknowledgement and commitment, just to give you an idea of what it can be, and perhaps to spark an interest in exploring it further in whatever work that you're doing in your communities or in your own spirit, because I think it can be a very powerful way of listening to place, and also of acknowledging our own, our own privilege and benefit to have access to all of this wonderful land that we just spoke about. So, if you will indulge me, I will share that with you. I think we're at our 10-minute mark, Diane. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
okay.
Got it. I wasn't sure.
It's
hard to know if you're all out there or not. It's all very quiet. So this is the acknowledgement that I crafted for my own work, and I'll share that with you, and then we can open the circle. So this is my statement of acknowledgement and commitment. The work of Earthwalk and Gilbert Lake Vision Keepers inhabits the unceded ancestral lands of the first peoples of northern Michigan. I honor these people, past, present, and future, and recognize with gratitude the gift of beauty and the spirit of the land that we have been given as an unearned privilege through bigotry, violence, genocide, and cultural appropriation. The Odawa have called the Great Lakes home for numerous centuries before the arrival of the French into the Great Lakes in the 17th century. Like other indigenous peoples to the Great Lakes, the Odawa have their own language, customs, traditions, and unique history, making them a distinct population and nation. The Odawa, also known as the Ottawa, Ojibwe, Chippewa, and Potawatomi, form the Anishinaabeg, the good people. After passage of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, the U.S. government forced the Odawa to cede their reserves in 1831, and eventually the tribes were removed to areas of Kansas. Their sacrifice has enabled us to live and to work. I further recognize that many aspects of my spiritual offerings and my personal journey benefit from the knowledge of indigenous people, the colonization of land taken from them, and from the wisdom cultivated by the teachings of countless indigenous and shamanic traditions. In recognition of this energy exchange and the debt of gratitude that I willingly owe to these cultures, traditions, and peoples, I commit to the following: an ongoing evolving definition of true stewardship to the land and to the physical and spiritual heritage it embodies, ongoing energy exchange supporting indigenous peoples and causes in acknowledgement of the debt owed and the sacrifices made, preservation of the teachings that I have been given through the many indigenous teachers and guides that have mentored me and generously given me the tools and resources needed for my own spiritual growth and maturation, and a deep personal commitment to walk in beauty in my life and on this land, and to bring honor to my community and ancestors through truthful, loving, and impeccable action in alignment with sacred law in accordance with divine will for the highest and the greatest good. I have spoken. Aho. So I encourage each of you to look into and to be in awareness about this particular way to listen to the land and to reach into your own hearts for how you wish to make a commitment and acknowledgement to moving forward in relationship to whatever land you are blessed to occupy. Anything else? We have just a few minutes before we call, or any other comments, things anyone wants to share?
Thank you very much for sharing those. Very beautiful.
Well, thank you for listening. And there's just wonderful resources online. And if you would like more information or to get what I have in writing, I have it on our weekly newsletter. And feel free to just email me. I can email you a copy of the newsletter, which has my notes on all of this, as well as, and then you can decide if you want to subscribe to our ongoing newsletter as well. That's not necessary. I can get it to you without you having to subscribe to it. But my email is Weber Lorane, WeberLorraine, at gmail.com. So it's real easy to get to me, and just drop me a line and say I'd like your talk in writing, and I can get it back to you.
Lorraine,
right.
This is Sue.
Sure.
A quick question. The notice that you send out, your Sunday reflection, Is that the email or the newsletter you're talking about, or is there another newsletter?
That's the newsletter I'm talking about. That usually I put all my notes from my talks into that, and all the, poems and things. So that would be the list. And if there are other things we're doing, I'd use that same list. So those of you who would like to subscribe to it, I would be glad to put you on that email. But you certainly don't have to in order to get this information. I can send it to you without you committing to a long-term relationship.
Oh, I get it, and I'm grateful for it. I haven't joined your Sunday morning service yet, but I enjoy getting the email or the newsletter. Thank you. Well,
thank you. That's great feedback, and I know not everybody can, which is one of the reasons why I try to just those who are otherwise occupied on a Sunday morning. I understand that completely. Okay, well, I think we are about three or 4 minutes away from our closing time, and I made a deep commitment to making sure I didn't go over, so I'm going to try to keep that. So I want to encourage you all to join the next Spirit Gathering on June 8th. It's always the second Tuesday of the month, so get those in your calendar, and I'm sure you will get an invitation. These calls are, as you know, hosted by the Church of Tzaddi, an interspiritual metaphysical organization founded in California in 1964. And as I'm sure many of you know, Tzaddi welcomes, nurtures, and supports people in celebrating and more directly experiencing their relationship with the loving presence of the divine. And these programs are open to people of any race, color, or national or ethnic origin. Please visit the website at tzaddi.org to learn more, including a full calendar of events hosted by Tzaddi members. And I want to open the circle now with thanks and a blessing. Certainly thanks to the Tzaddi founders, Bishop Amy Keyes and Dorothy Blackmere, for whom all of this has been made possible. Thanks to all of you who have been a part of this community tonight. It was lovely to get to meet some of you and our fellow Tzaddians out there, and I hope our paths cross in the future. And I want to thank Diane for her impeccable stewardship and leadership in putting these gatherings together and giving me everything I needed to hopefully do this in a good way, and for being a really wonderful space holder. And of course, thanks to the presence of the sacred and beloved divine in all the forms and in all ways that energy dances within your beings, that we are always blessed to be in relationship to and in partnership with that divine spirit, and that we have these moments of coming together that remind us of how blessed we are. And so I say now, in celebration of the people and in honor of the sacred laws that all things are born, the divine feminine space sparked and seeded by the sacred masculine, and that nothing shall be done to bring harm to the children, and the children of this planet shall flourish, that this sacred circle that we have created here together will be opened but never broken. Wow. So it is. Thank you all. I wish everyone a wonderful night and a good week ahead and month ahead. And as I say, feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that you would like me to follow up with you on. I would be more than happy to do that. And I think, Diane, you're the person that closes down the line. Is that a correct thing? Anything else anybody needs logistically? We all set?
I think we're set. Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for joining. Have a great night.